welcome to the Influential Nonprofit. We are going to talk today about I would say, the biggest one of the, if not the biggest pain point that I hear about is board leadership and getting boards to serve at the highest level possible. And I found somebody who can help, and that is my new friend, Elise Woodworth. Welcome to the Influential Nonprofit, Elise.
Thank you for having me, Marianne. I'm really excited. Maybe oddly so, people think it's odd sometimes, but I'm really excited to share and talk about board leadership.
Okay, yeah, and it is something that I feel like if you're doing it well, you know you could do it better, and if it's not going well, it's really it's hard to run an organization,
Mhm.
without that leadership. Okay, before we get into that, because there's so much to talk about, I always start with the first question, which is, tell me something you're really proud of that you don't get to brag about that much.
Well, little side story. I am proud to be a homeschool mother of five children.
Wow.
And why I'm so proud of that, and I don't really get to talk a lot about it, but I am demonstrating by my work and following my passion with nonprofits and boards and helping them be more effective. I'm demonstrating to my children that they can follow their passions too, even if it doesn't fit in a box or look like what everybody else is doing, they can find a way to follow their passion.
That's lovely. And what made you want to homeschool? Like, what was that?
We're definitely COVID homeschoolers. We have
Ah,
our own,
gotcha.
we have our own topic or our own title. Um, when COVID hit, we had a kindergartner, two preschoolers, and I had two infants. They were twins. And honestly, I failed online kindergarten.
Yeah.
In about 2 weeks, we realized that it wasn't going to
This
work for
wasn't
us.
gonna work, right?
And so we started at a very, young age with the kids. And what we found in that first couple years is that it really wasn't as hard as we thought it would be. Now there are so many obstacles, and I think that's a whole nother conversation. But it turned out to be just a really nice rhythm and habit for our family, so we've kept doing it.
Yeah, it just kept going. You found
We
something that
found the
worked for you.
community we needed,
Yeah.
and the support that we needed to make it a success. And so we've just kind of marched on with it. And here we are. And we're starting to look at middle schools and, moving into some higher level curriculum. And I never would have said in a million years I'd be doing it. But here we are.
Hey, you find your way in there's a lot of different paths. That's really
Absolutely.
cool. Okay, so let me give you a quick intro so we all know who we're talking to. You are a national speaker, board relations coach, and known for clarity driven approach to strengthening nonprofit boards. Yay! You're a VMI graduate, Air Force veteran, and MBA. So while you're homeschooling your kids, you're also you're a veteran and MBA, and you're the author of Business Not Battle and creator of the Four Champions model. Man, oh
Mhm.
man, there's a lot to talk about here. So, we're going to talk about growing and developing the board. Here's how I want to start this, which is there is an inherent oddness to the board structure. Okay? So, we're bringing people on because we need them to lead their board members. They're like responsible for the organization. And yet, they look to this like an executive director for guidance. But then we say, well, no, you're the one who's supposed to give us the guidance. No, you, right?
Mhm.
And so many executive directors, CEOs wind up sort of hand holding or not knowing, like, what I want to say, hand holding. It becomes like just somebody else to take care of instead of
Mhm.
somebody taking care of you. Like, as a mom, we can all get this, right? It's adding to the mental load, it's not taking from it. And
Absolutely.
and then they're saying, I don't want to do that, that's not my intention, but I'm not really sure what I actually should be doing. right? And so I just see it as there's a weird tension from the beginning. Like, I own a business, you own a business. I don't have board members telling me what to do, right? And I can make my own choices. So the way the nonprofit is just set up, boards are reality. It's not going to change, but it is an odd dynamic, right? And I
Mhm.
feel like this is inherently where our problems, where the I don't want to say problems, it's their issues. Like,
The
problems is,
tension. I call
yeah,
it tension.
that right, there's a tension, there's already a tension as to, because nobody's really, not nobody, that there can be a lack of understanding, like, what is my actual job here.
Mhm. And I think you've worded it and captured the tension, the situation very effectively. The the relationship between a board and the staff is inherently odd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how that all got started. But I see the benefit of it when there's clarity in those roles. And that's why I talk so much about it, why it's the first pillar of the book, why it's the first champion who shows up on the scene. Um, Having awareness and a clear definition between governance and operations, I think, is where that tension starts to release, where we start to see getting more focused in business. So the title of the book I wrote is Business, Not Battle. And those tensions, frustrations, all those things you talked about are what I call battle.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get into tense or battle-like discussions, and that's okay, as long as we don't stay there, right? As long as we get refocused on business. So, what I find in those situations is being able to define and articulate and clarify what the board's role is and teach that to them and then hold them to those expectations or have them hold themselves to the expectation can really lighten up a lot of load on the executive director and staff because they don't feel like they have to handhold or follow up with all the time. Did you get the report? Did you read the report? Did you see the minutes? Did you, you know, doing all of those things? Instead, it's, your role is governance. And what does that mean for our organization? And then treating them as though they are leaders. So I think a lot of times what I've seen is executive directors will bring all the good reports, all the best of all of the work that's happened and what's going on with the mission and the programs are doing amazing and our fundraiser was fantastic. We had all this success. And then the board goes away thinking, wow, we're doing really great. And the director goes away feeling like I need so much help still.
Right, right,
And so coming to the board meeting with questions or problems for the board to work on and say, this is what I need help with. And I think it's okay to be brave enough to say those things as long as you have a board that understands their role.
right. So that last part, as long as you, because so I have a client right now who's sort of working to upgrade, raise the standard for her board's
Mhm,
participation. They faced some challenges over the last couple of months, and really needs their input, guidance, support. All of those things, is having a hard time, um, getting them engaged. And I think you just said it, like, understanding what their role, like, their roles are changing. They don't realize it yet. You know
mhm,
what I mean? Um, and I was saying, being patient with them and understanding that we're sort of retraining them.
mhm.
Um, but it can be really disappointing when you say, "Hey, I need some help," and then you get no response, or you ask to do something and you get no response.
Mhm. My favorite trick for that is to focus it all on the organization's needs. To frame every change in that instance, you want to phrase all the changes and all of the, things that are going to be different around and based on what the organization's needs are. So
Yes.
it's not what Marianne needs.
Right, right, right.
It's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the organization needs to be successful.
Yes.
And um, when you start with a mission focused approach, you lead with the mission in the meeting. You lead with that every time. I it's my like golden rule. You lead with the mission every meeting. You restate that. You say, "This is our mission," and maybe have a few people share why they're passionate about that mission or what's their connection to it. Um, and then, to continue to achieve this mission, these are some needs we have as an organization.
Right.
And this is where curiosity, my second champion, comes in, the champion of discovery. You ask a question. How are we going to fix that? And you leave it to the board to think about. And handing over responsibility of, their engagement, their involvement to them can be incredibly helpful in getting them to switch their mindset from receiving, like I'm going
Yes.
to receive the report, I'm going to receive the this, the that, um, to engaging with the discussion and how can I be a part of making this a more successful or effective program, operation, whatever.
Right. Right. Instead of just receiving the information, like how can I get engaged in the conversation using, right, the my experience, my skills, my knowledge to
Mhm.
benefit the organization. Okay, before we get too much, give me the four pillars.
Okay, so it's clarity, the champion of awareness.
Okay.
So the pillar's awareness, the champion is clarity.
Uh-huh.
Then there's curiosity, the champion of discovery.
Okay.
There's stewardship. Or she's the champion of advocacy, and growth, the champion of innovation.
Okay. So when we're looking at the board, I think one of the biggest issues you hit on is the idea almost of letting go, of letting them solve the problem, letting them set direction, letting them
Mhm.
have, because you want them to have a say, but then maybe you don't really want them to have a say. Because what
Mhm.
if they come up with something like, oh no, um, and now I feel like I have to go this direction that I may not agree with.
Mhm.
So I think there's sometimes we say we want them to give input, then maybe we really don't.
Yeah, I think that really goes back to that line of clarity between governance and operations. So you might figure out operationally a direction that you want to go in. And so the question or the problem that you bring to them for discussion and deliberation isn't which direction are we going to go in? It's how are we going to go in this way?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the difference between
Mm-hmm.
like, don't give them all the options, give them this is the lane we need to stay in. How are we going to do that?
Right.
And like bringing them and letting them think of strategy, think of ideas, um, and and you just set up those operational guardrails almost to help rein that discussion in because otherwise you end up with a lot of really good ideas. And this is where if you have a strong strategic plan or operating procedure, it can really be a helpful tool if there are good ideas or they have like, well, what if we went over here and did this thing instead? You can say that's great. Let's put that in our like discussion plan for when we talk about our next initiatives. Right now we need to focus on these next things and how we're going to like achieve these next milestones before we go back and look at what our next priorities are going to be.
Right.
But
It's
having a place for all those great ideas to go.
right.
Um,
We don't have to immediately implement them because somebody
right,
thought of them.
right.
Right. Um, and I love what you're saying because the plan, the strategy is, is making the choice, so to speak, of where the priorities are instead of the people, right? Our direction we set is this. So that is sounds so cool. Let's put it over here. When and we're ready for it. It's a like it's the yes and like
Hmm.
you know
And maybe there's a time in your board's annual meeting cycle that you revisit those strategic priorities, and you put them through your values and your mission, and you see which ones come to the top.
yes,
And it might not be that one
right.
or all of those. It might just be, the next ones that you have the resources
All
for.
right. I tell
And that's
people
okay.
ideas aren't direction. It's just an
Right.
idea. Like we can decide. Okay, I have a couple of questions. So first and foremost is the idea of what do you see as the best way to activate a board into fundraising? Because that is a question I get all the time. How do I get my board to raise more money?
So I specifically avoid using the F word when I'm working with a new board, or when I'm starting to work with a board. I specifically avoid the F word because what I think as board members, a lot of times people are not coming from a fundraising, a financial background. They don't have experience there. And so it sounds big and scary. It sounds like a big, scary battle that they don't want to go into. And so what instead happens is they put up a barrier and they're like, nope, not a fundraiser. Done. Okay, that story's over. But what we can do is turn them into champions of advocacy, which is the stewardship champion. We can teach them to be good stewards of our mission. And I think that's the first step in really creating a board full of fundraisers. I have a wonderful activity that I encourage all of you to use at your next board meeting. I call it the Champions Elevator Pitch. And I can give Marianne the link so you guys can all have the template and just run through it. Um, but it walks board members through saying the mission in their own words. What's the mission mean to them? What inspired them to be a part of it or inspires their connection? And then a piece or a smidgen of impact that the organization has that they're really proud of and want to share. And I find that having those three things, a board member that can say, I love what we're doing, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it and why I'm excited. And this is the impact that we're having for the community. Once they get comfortable saying that, the next natural step is, won't you join me in supporting the organization?
Yes.
Which is a much easier ask than, can you write me a check for $50? Or, but it might be, won't you join me at the gala next month? We're going to be talking about all this really exciting stuff. And by phrasing it in that way, it's a much more accessible pathway, I think, for the general population of board members to make an ask than to really sit down and learn the fundamentals of fundraising, which is such a skill. And like I've seen so much beauty in fundraisers and the way that they can build relationship and make an ask. And they devote their life to figuring that out. But board members are doing a lot of other things other than focused on the organization. So giving them that little stepping stone to then give them a natural point of, join me in this campaign, join me at the gala, join me at the 5K, whatever it is, it gives them a way to engage that isn't immediately like the
Right.
wall, the brick
Asking
wall.
for money. Right.
Hmm.
Um, can you give me like a quick example of that? Can you pull one a quick, of the three steps?
Of the activity?
Yeah, like like just an example of it.
Or do you want me to give you an example
Yeah, I want
verbally?
you to give me like, can you just
Okay.
give me a little speech? Like just
Okay.
yeah, run
Let's
it.
see. Sure. Well, I myself am a board member for the Virginia Military Institute Board of Trustees of their foundation. And our mission is to steward the funds that are donated to the organization so we can continue to have scholarships available for future cadets to continue to engage with our institute. I'm really connected to that mission because I received a scholarship in as a cadet, and it wouldn't have been possible for me to go to VMI without someone supporting me through private financial support through the foundation. So I get to be a part of that for other people now. And I really am so excited about our Call to Duty campaign, which is allowing us to bring in more ROTC scholarship cadets. And really, I've seen so much growth in the young leaders for our nation. I get to see that every time I go back to VMI. And it is such an amazing thing to know that I'm a part of it. And it would be great if you would join me in supporting that campaign as well.
Okay, love it. Good job. There you go. So
See,
just give
so, and I haven't practiced that. That's
no,
just kind
that's
of off
okay.
the cuff.
No,
So
you're
it was a little
that's what
longer.
it's supposed to be though. It's supposed to be off the cuff. Don't worry about it. But you gave the 3 points, which is the mission, right? You do the 3 points again. The mission,
Mission, inspiration,
inspiration,
and
and
impact.
impact, right? And the impact for you when you were talking about the impact, like you, I could feel your energy rise when you were talking about like the future leaders and going back and
Mhm.
that energy.
And I see it, and I am so excited
Yeah,
about it, even as a board member.
it's a nice little format for people to be able to say like, oh, I do this, right? um and okay, and so we'll put that in the show notes for people to be able to access that, and
Good.
that is a great exercise. I also agree. I do not think board members should be asking for money. That's a high level skill. Unless they really want to, they have experience, they're good at it.
Mhm.
That's fine. But they're really good at doing exactly what you said, is just telling people, finding if that's a passion somebody else shares. I'm sure that, um, and inviting them into something. That's a really easy thing for people to do.
Mhm.
Um, so I completely agree. We often want to just I think sometimes the F word is scary, and like if they could just do it, then I wouldn't have to do it. And,
Mhm.
okay. Um then my next question is about board agreements. So because your first pillar is that of, tell me, it's the
Clarity.
discovery,
Mhm.
clarity, right? And this, so that clarity may come from the beginning of an agreement, right? Here's what I agree to do.
Mhm.
Here's what the organization will do for you. Here's what you will do to the organization. What I have seen a lot of is the board agreements are like, here's what I pledge as a board member to do. But what the ones I like the best is like, here's what as a board member I pledge to do. Here's what an organization, how we pledge to support you in that service. So
Mhm.
it's not just like, hey, I'm agreeing to be a board member. Here's everything I'm supposed to do this and come to these meetings and give this much and all that. Like, hey, here's what I pledge to do, and then here's what you pledge to do. So it's more of an actual agreement.
Mhm. Partnership.
Yes, a partnership. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, I really like that. And I think it shows some engagement or connection on both sides. So I really like that. And when um when you're forming those, this is the other thing. I like that to be a board discussion. Like
Mm-hmm.
I I really like them to say, and I usually start with like define your culture for me. Like what's it like if because I'm outside when I come into a board and I'm working with an organization, I'll say define your culture for me. What's it like to be on the board? If you wanted me to come sit here at this table with you, what would you want to tell me about your board and your organization? And we just start there. And then, from there you kind of start to build the framework of, okay, well, how often do you meet? And, if in an ideal situation, how often would you meet? If you're not meeting, if you've never met, like what would it look like if you started coming together? Would there be a fundraising component? Or Is it a network? Do you want the network to grow? What are those expectations? Um, and so having that develop almost naturally as a part of the discussion. And then um, I think it's one of those great ways that we can use AI, having AI record that conversation and pull out what those expectations are,
Mm-hmm.
and refining them from there, but having the AI pull out from your conversation or the board conversation what the expectations are, and then looking at them and saying, okay, now I'm not starting from scratch anymore. I'm going to build off this list. And you could do that just as easily with the organization side too, of like what one side expects from the other and vice
Right.
versa.
Right. I love that. Okay. And I feel like one of the biggest issues I see is um, on the other side of the service agreement, which is accountability. How can we hold each other accountable for doing what we said we were going to do? And a lot of times people say, hey, my board's not engaged. I said, well, what kind of system of accountability do you have? And ultimately, there is not one. So, is that something? Is that part of the pillars? Is that something that you work with?
I don't know if I would say that's part of the pillars. You could, I think, put it under stewardship or growth because you'd have
Mm-hmm.
to probably add it in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it's where assessment comes in really handy. Um, Board assessment is not, I think, as common as it should be. You find some, but the boards that are doing it, that are doing an annual, even if it's self-assessment, self-reflection, taking time to look at those expectations again every year and assessing how well did we meet what we said we would do. Um, those boards are more effective and do a better job at staying engaged, recruiting other board members, and ultimately being more effective. So I think assessment is a really good tool that you can use, um, and really encourage people to look at. And an assessment, I say assessment, and it's not audit. We're not like, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
huge,
This isn't
tremendous.
like finger pointing judgment. No, it's
No,
like how well
absolutely
are
not.
we meeting
This
each
is like
other's
a
needs?
Google
Yeah.
form. This is
Mm-hmm.
like a Google form with a handful of questions on it. Um, how are you engaged? Meet these things, and then you're able to see the res the responses. They can be anonymous, um, and just like this is our standard. You have that in the expectations document. Maybe this is where we're meeting. This is where we're at. So then again, we ask the thoughtful question, how do we raise that? How do we raise our standard as a board?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something that they need to own. Not that the staff need to figure out how we're going to engage our board more. No, that's something the board needs to figure out for themselves.
Yeah. I love that. It's the idea of like, no, this, I'm not going to, it's like, I'm not going to increase your engagement by telling you what to do. Like
Right.
that I'm going to increase your engagement by giving you, right, here's how would you like to be more engaged? What would that look like
Hmm.
for you? One of the boards I served on every year, they had a meeting. There's, one-on-one with the ED, the development director, and if possible, the board president. And it
Hmm.
was, and they would say, "Hey, it's board, it's your one on one." That was part of our agreement.
Right.
And I go in, and it was lunch, and it was lovely. And they asked the question, "How can we make this the best board you've ever been on? What
That's
can we do
awesome.
to make this the?" And it wasn't like you didn't do this or you did that. It's like, what can we do to make this the best experience for you? And I had a lot of thoughts, and also I had some concerns, and I had some vulnerabilities, because I said, I don't know why I'm here. I can't read these financial statements. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer,
Hmm.
I'm not an insurance, like all these people who, the white guys with ties, and like, and the corporate world that I've
Right.
never been a part of. And so it helped me find my place and my voice when saying, well, what do you want to help us with? What do you see because I was there for a reason, even though that reason was I couldn't see, like sometimes I would lose sight of that because it can be intimidating. You're in a room with people, you don't know them. I don't know how they make decisions. I don't know who they are. And yet I'm supposed to have these, you know, conversations about, honest conversations about direction. So it allowed us to like be open about some of the struggles we were having without having to do it through the full group, right?
Mhm.
And I always appreciated that. And I just appreciated that question. So that was an observation that I want to share. Okay, I have one more question. Well, I have a couple more, but this is a big one, which is
Sure.
orientation. What I see is people go, I don't want to overwhelm them at first. So I'm going to let them get on the board and then I will, give them a couple months to acclimate. No, I say no one's more excited, more devoted than when they
Hmm.
first start. And when you let them just drift a little, you're telling them, "Hey, it's not like you're telling them it's you're not matching their energy, right?" And they're going to then drop their energy down to me. Oh, well, isn't okay? I guess it's not that exciting, or I'm not that needed. And then you're going to ramp it up. And I say, meet them, right? Like there's no other time. Like the highest point of excitement is when you start,
Hmm.
and people tend to do a lot like, oh, here's the binder, or maybe it's not a binder anymore, it's the big Google Docs full of info that you have to go
Hmm.
over. So you take something that's personal and mission driven and that they're passionate about and immediately turn it, and it starts to feel transactional. And I feel like the energy drops to meet
Hmm.
that if you're not careful, right? If you really don't understand what's happening.
Hmm. Well, say the question again that the board asked you, the board president asked you.
How can I make this the best board service you've ever had?
You could start with that.
Yeah.
Your in your orientation, um, and y- really, I think you nailed it when you said you make it transactional. In that first, if you make it transactional, that you're setting the stage for the culture of the
Yes.
board. And if your board is very transactional and that's what you want, perfect.
Yeah.
Like you nailed it. But if you want engaged board members who are going to roll their sleeves up and get to work, we're going to have make discussion about strategy or open doors and new ideas. If you want that kind of engagement, then you have to mirror, to your point, that energy from the beginning. And so, how do we do that? We ask more questions. We're really excited to have you here. Why don't you tell us about what called you to this particular way of volunteering for our organization? And you might know that person for 20 years before they're on the board, but you've never heard maybe from their perspective why they want to be on the board or why they want to serve. And they might not have thought about it.
Yeah.
But asking them will start their wheels turning and start them thinking about, wow, I've never thought about it. Why am I so engaged? And it sets the culture to be more thoughtful, to be more intentional about how we do things. And it's great to cover the mission and the vision and the impact that the organization is having also. But weaving in those points of discussion and discovery is how you create those champions for your organization.
I love that. Thank
I'm
you so
glad
much.
it's recorded too. I'm going to go back
Yeah,
and
because you're
listen.
gonna go like, wait, what did I just say? That was
I was
really
like, that was
good.
great.
I got to use that again. Um, you know, it is about it's because what I'm hearing you saying, sort of a theme emerging for me, is just really asking questions. It's not telling them; it's asking, what would it look like to you? What would it be like for you? What ideally, what would that look like? I'm working with someone who they don't have a set board schedule right now, and so they have to come up with it. I was like, wow. So what would that look like for you? What would be a good meeting schedule, right? Like, because when they get to say, you know they're more likely to support it because they were a part of the decision. and
Hmm.
and I I feel like if there's one theme is maybe, we move from telling to asking, right? Asking
Hmm.
help, um, and making them, and saying, well, what would you want to do? Um, and then just really deeply listening. And I think the listening is part of, like, we don't have to, we can just listen, right? We don't
Hmm.
have to decide, don't like that. And I think that's part of it, is sometimes we don't want to ask because we're afraid of right, we're afraid of the answer. But I always tell people, just listening, just receiving
Hmm.
is often enough, right?
Right.
And then it could go a different way, but they felt like their opinion was heard. And then even if the decision, you know what I mean, if the decision went
Hmm.
a different way. Okay.
And that can be so powerful for those times when the discussions do turn more tense or there is a disagreement. But if you've already set up the culture to be where we discuss, we talk about, we give, we take, then it's less emotional, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
And people are able to engage with that in general a lot better.
Right. And it's because I talk a lot about, like, peace and conflict. You call it, battle. I call it conflict, but there's a peace and
Hmm.
conflict, and it's a balance, right? And sometimes we need to have a little conflict in order to create peace. But
Hmm.
if we, and what I see, and I'm just going to say this because there's plenty of places to learn about this, and um, is that when you put peace on a pedestal, it's like a teeter totter. Ultimately, that will come crashing down, and there will
Hmm.
be more conflict. So these little discussions, little battles, whatever we want to call them, these are just part of a process of getting to a decision.
Hmm.
And if we look at the as a battle or a conflict as a negative thing, right? And
Hmm.
then we're just acquiescing. We're saying sure, 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 but we don't really agree. And then ultimately, it's going to be 10 times worse, right?
Hmm.
I was coaching this guy a long time ago, and he said, I was really hoping to avoid the drama. And I said, but the drama is not drama. It's people processing what's going on. And if we
Hmm.
let them process, they're going to work through it, and we can get to the other side.
Hmm. Change, if you look at the change curve, you're reminding me of like what change looks like, and it's like good, and then it's really bad, and then it comes
Yeah.
back up and it levels out.
Yeah, yeah. And I just did a podcast on the extinction burst, which is when you implement change, and you implement a new boundary or an agreement, people will push back really hard in the beginning, but that's
Hmm.
actually a good thing. That means it's working,
Right.
right? And so if you're working for engagement and you don't get much, or you get a lot of pushback, that's a good thing. All right, I want to ask one more question, which is, if you're listening today and you're like, wow, this is really good, and maybe this is a lot to take in. It could be not. But what could be one small thing, that leadership habit, that could change a lot? Is there one small thing we could start doing right now to make a shift?
I think it would be the thoughtful question. Think about one area of tension or conflict or stress, frustration, whatever that looks like for you or your organization or your board. And I want you to spend time with that feeling, that situation, and think about what question, if asked in this situation, would help us take steps to resolve it. So instead of how do I untie the whole tangled mess of knots, whatever it looks like, what one thoughtful question, so not a yes or no, not hiding a solution as part of the question, but genuinely curious question could we ask about that situation to help it start to resolve?
Mm,
Whether it's growing your board, whether it's changing how the board functions, whether it's changing our approach to reporting to the board, whatever it is, take a moment, take a step back from that operation or situation and ask a question.
I love that. Thank you so much. And it's a nice way to wrap this up, as the idea of, like, asking the thoughtful questions. Such good guidance. Okay, so I always end with the same question as well. So I'm in St. Louis, you're like in the DC area, but if we ever find each other in the same city, in the same karaoke bar, what's your go to song?
Oh my goodness. Friends in Low Places.
Okay, a classic.
It's a classic and like, you
Everyone
know,
sings along.
yep. I don't know if I can actually sing that low, but it's been a while, so we'll
That's
figure
a,
it out.
we're doing it. It's a date. We've got it. Okay, Elise, if people are interested in learning more about what you do, I have all the info in the show notes. What's the best way? Are you on LinkedIn the most, or where can we
Yeah,
find you?
LinkedIn is where you can find a lot of my content. I'm posting regularly there. Um, New articles, opportunities, events. That's the place to find them is Elise Woodworth at on LinkedIn.
Okay, or at least woodworth.com. And we'll also put the link to the what do you
The exercise.
the exercise. Yes, we'll
Mhm.
put that in there. Thanks so much for being here. This has been amazing.
This is wonderful, and I'm so excited for the work that you're doing, breaking down barriers, helping nonprofits do better. And I'm just so honored to have been a guest on your show.
Oh, thank you. Wow, I'm going to receive that. I appreciate that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. And as always, if you want to connect with me, my link is in the show notes. I'm happy to talk with you um, about, higher engagement, better performance, whatever you want to talk about. And that is it for this episode of The Influential Nonprofit. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.